Hello, everybody. I'm here to show you the latest bankruptcy, credit rating, delinquency, and loans. Okay, so I've set up a very typical game, and I have the following players: Anybot. These are the robots, the four robots and one human. All right, and I'm going to let them run. But before I run, let me just show you the configuration. The new configuration, you will see that there are new parameters here, new configurator under the module finance. You will see three more entries. First is the loan one allow. So you can allow a first loan, second loan, they default to no. So you need to turn them on manually. And each of them has the following submenus. If you click the submenus, you will see the name of the loan. It's called Easy Money. The credit rating requirement not used. The minimum current ratio is 2. Base interest is 1%. The terms is 10 days. The amortization is fully amortized. Okay, what does all this mean? Okay, first of all, credit rating requirement, when you play the game later, you will get certain rating. But for the first 10 days, your company is not rated. But after 10 days, if you never have any delinquent payment out, any outgoing delinquent payment, then your credit rating is A, AAA, triple A. But if you start collecting, if you start receiving delinquent payout, let's say you fail to pay your salary and pay your rent, etc., then your credit rating will go down from A to B to C to D, and then you're in trouble, okay? Which means that you are not qualified for this loan, okay? So that is the credit rating. What about current ratio? Current ratio is the ratio of your total debt over total equity, which means that it's a measurement of how likely your company will go to default. So if you have a current ratio of very high, that means you're very good. Everybody starts with 100, okay, current ratio, which means that you're very healthy. But as soon as you got a loan, for example, then your current ratio will drop, especially if you have you do run out of cash, you run out of OD, etc. Then the current ratio will drop, and then you may not be qualified for this particular loan. But it is not difficult to get qualified, because for loan number one, credit rating requirement is not used, and the current ratio only 2. So it's pretty easy to get the money. That's why the name is Easy Money. Okay, so what is base interest? Base interest is the interest rate on a per day basis. All right, so this is very, very expensive in if you use it in the real world. 1% per day is very expensive. But of course, in our game, we need to put some constraint to the student on a per day basis. So we have to put 1% so that really care, so that the learners can really feel the impact. Which means that if you really don't need the loan, please don't go for loan. You go for loan only when it's necessary. Of course, you can change it as a CT, certified trainer. You can change the loan to have a lower interest rate per day basis. So the default is 1% per day. Okay. The terms is 10 days. Of course, you can also change it. Terms means that you need to fully pay back by the end of 10 days. Amortization, there are two types of amortization. There's fully amortized and also interest only. Okay, we'll explain both of them later. Okay, fully amortized means that for now is briefly is that you need to pay an equal payment. But interest only, which means that you only pay the interest on a per day basis, and at the end of the term, then you have to pay your principal in as a balloon payment. Okay, so that is that, and that is loan number one. Of course, it's default to 0. And loan number 2 has the same amount of submenu, and it's called Maxi Profit. So loan number 2 is better in a sense, because as the name goes, it's Maxi Profit, so maximize your profit. It has 35 days of payment day as a default. You can change it to 50, etc. And the base interest rate is very low. Okay, it was 0.2%. And the requirement is harsher. The requirement of current ratio, you need 5, okay? But it's also not difficult to attain 5. If you run a reasonable business, you should get anything beyond 20, 30, 40 of the current ratio. But when you start collecting loans and all that, then your current ratio will drop. So in other words, this will stop you from getting too much debt, okay, for your company. Then there's a credit rating requirement, which is A, triple A. So you need to maintain very good credit, before you can get this loan. Okay, and amortization is default to interest only, which means that it's very easy for you. You can just pay interest only. Of course, at the end of the term, you need to pay the principal of the amount that you owe. All right, so this is it. Now, let me just stress what is the base interest here. The base interest is the interest rate that you need to add on to the Fed fund. Okay, so we are also have a simulation of the Fed fund rate, which is fluctuating. So when you apply for a loan, your interest rate, effective interest rate, is the base rate plus the Fed fund rate. And the Fed fund rate, because it's moving up and down, you need to look at the forecast. In a forecast, you see the Fed fund changes, and if it is at a time where it's lower, then if you lock in the interest rate, it's very good for you. Okay, you pay a lot less expense. But if you get the loan at the time when the Fed fund is high, then you're locked in for the whole terms of the loan with the high interest rate. Okay, that's it. So that's the loan. Then this one, the third, is the maximum delinquent item, which is your how many delinquent item you can get before you go bankrupt. So you can change this to, let's say, 100, 70, 100. So if you start collecting delinquent payout, which means that you start failing to pay out, then this will accumulate. So when you get to 50, anything beyond that, you will trigger a bankruptcy, which means that your player will stop playing because they cannot do anything anymore. Nothing, you cannot do any transaction, and basically your company is frozen at that moment. Okay, we have not got to the point how do you resolve bankruptcy, how to get out of bankruptcy. That's beyond the scope of the MonsoonSIM for now, but at least you will get to bankruptcy if you're not careful. Okay, so that is the three component that is being added. Again, loan 1, loan 2, they are default to no, and only delinquency is default to yes, which means that delinquency is in play all the time.